Beloved, Christmas often brings feelings of joy, warmth, and excitement. It is a season filled with lights, gatherings, and all the trimmings that make us smile. But if we are honest, there's another side to this season, a side, Reverend Terry, that reminds us of the disappointments that we carry. For some, Christmas highlights who or what is missing. A loved one who's no longer with us, dreams we had for our families, or even the hope that life would look different by now. It's like decorating a tree but realizing there's a broken ornament you can't fix. It doesn't ruin the tree, but you notice it every time you look at the tree. The truth is, if we're going to authentically celebrate Advent and Christmas, we can't sweep those feelings of disappointment under the rug. Instead, beloved, we have to bring them to God, trusting that He can meet us in the tension between joy and longing, between what is and what we hope will be. This is where the prophet Haggai steps in. Haggai speaks to a group of people who were willing but deeply discouraged. They'd returned from exile, Joyce, and started rebuilding the temple, a task that symbolized more than just construction. But as they worked, they found themselves disheartened because the temple wasn't in the shape that it used to be. It wasn't in the shape that they remembered. It wasn't what they had hoped for. Reverend Long, like those building the temple, we too can find ourselves discouraged when our present circumstances, our present situations don't align with our expectations. But God's message through Haggai reminds us that there's more to come if we just keep going. That's the title of the message today. Keep going. There's more to come. Keep pressing. There's more to come. Keep living. There's more to come. Keep worshiping. There's more to come. Keep standing. There's more to come. And yes, friendship, keep building, because there's more to come. The book of Haggai is a short, only 2 chapters, book, but its message is powerful and fitting for the season of Advent. After returning from exile in Babylon, the Jews began the work of rebuilding the temple. But it didn't take long for them to stop, largely because of opposition from the Samaritans. For 15 years, the work sat unfinished until God raised up Haggai to remind them of their purpose and call them back to the task. Sound familiar, friendship? They returned to work in September of 520 BC. But the initial excitement did not last. Barely a month had passed before the enthusiasm began to fade. The people were overwhelmed by the size of the project and discouraged by their memories of Solomon's temple. Brianna, that temple had been magnificent. It was a beautiful, and it was beyond words or description. And their efforts in comparison, in their eyes, felt small and insignificant. Reverend Felton, it was like trying to build a sandcastle where a towering cathedral once was stood. Their work seemed to only highlight the gap between what was and what was now. And what was there for them at that time. Haggai speaks directly to these willing but discouraged workers, calling them to press on. And beloved, this message is designed for us today to realize, I know there's some discouraged folk in the room. I know there's some folk dealing with the tension of their life. They thought they'd be married by now. Preach, Curry, I'm sure enough trying. They thought that they'd have a child by now. They thought that it would be different by now. I'd be moved across the country. I'd be able to retire. I'd be able to do something else. This is not where I saw myself being. Haggai speaks directly to us that can be discouraged. Most specifically in Haggai, Deacon Shelby, Haggai chapter 2, we see the prophet deliver 3 powerful sermons. I encourage you, Haggai is only 2 chapters. You should read it for yourself. And many of you know, I'm tracking through the devotional that we're using. And so when I landed here, I was like, this is an obscure text. It's not necessarily Advent-ish, but there is something here that is startling and awakening. startling and awakening. So Haggai chapter 2, the prophet delivers 3 powerful sermons designed to encourage God's people as they rebuild the temple. Today, we will look at the first sermon found in Haggai chapter 2, verses 1 through 9, in which the prophet assures them that the glory of the new house, though it may not be seen as grand as Solomon's temple, will surpass in its spiritual significance. This points directly to the coming of Christ, who will ultimately fulfill God's glory. Haggai speaks to the people caught between the hope of rebuilding and the burden of unmet expectations. They were busy restoring their lives, but the temple, the place where God's presence dwelled, remained in ruins. They were building their houses. They were taking care of their stuff, and they left God's house a mess. Their priorities were out of alignment. And Haggai's voice called them back to focus on what really mattered. And what really matters is that we worship God and fulfill his promises. That we worship God and we look in anticipation for the fulfillment of his promises. Advent mirrors this tension. It's a season of waiting and longing, a time to prepare our hearts for the fulfillment of God's greatest promise. Like the people of Haggai's day, we can grow weary in waiting or distracted by our own priorities. We think it's about us. It's about what I'm dealing with. But Advent reminds us to refocus and press forward with anticipation. It reminds us that what truly matters at Christmas is worshiping Christ and remembering that God fulfills his promises. Haggai's message stirs us to see that God is still working. I said, God is still working. I said, God is still working. I know you may feel a little depressed, but God is still working. I know you feel a little discouraged, but God is still working. I know you can't buy everybody everything you wanted to buy them, but God is still working. I know you got to work on Christmas Day, but God is still working. I feel like preaching. I ain't got much of a voice, but I feel it now. I know you feel like I'm not going to get to see the person I thought I was going to see, and things ain't going the way I want to, but I stopped by to tell you God is still working. Your circumstances may not be aligning the way you planned it, but God is still working. Oh my, Haggai's message stirs us to see that God is still working. His promises are unfolding. His presence is with us. His glory is ahead of us. Even as we wait, we are called to work. Even as we wait, Jasmine, we're called to trust God. Even as we wait, we're called to offer our hearts in obedience to a great God who knows who we are, where we are, and how we are. And this text is tailored to teach us 3 keys to help us keep going with anticipation, even when the journey feels discouraging. And beloved, first, we must be courageous. So point number 1 is we must be courageous. Look with me at Haggai chapter 2, verse 4. There, after having set things up in verses 1 through 3, which I've already explained to you, now the prophet Haggai says, the preacher Haggai says, yet now be strong, O Zerubbabel, declares the Lord. Be strong, O Joshua, son of Jehozadak, the high priest. Be strong, all you people of the land, declares the Lord. Work, for I am with you, declares the Lord of hosts. The people of Haggai's time had stopped working on the temple, not because the task was impossible, but because they were stuck in the past. Lord, help us. They remembered the beauty and the splendor of Solomon's temple, but they failed to remember the power and the presence of God. And it was that power and presence of God that made the temple significant. It wasn't the beauty of the temple. It was the power and presence of God. Their focus on what once was left them feeling like their current efforts would never measure up. I ain't never going to be able to make the dressing as good as Mama made it. I'm never going to be able to make Christmas look the way Grandma used to do. So why do I even go through and work on it? Why? It ain't never going to feel like friendship felt in the 80s. It ain't never going to feel like it was in the 90s. And it may not, but that does not mean that God has stopped. Oh, I feel like I almost feel like preaching. Their focus was on what once was, and it left them feeling that they could never measure up. But God, He steps in to remind them that the temple has the same potential. I said the temple has the same potential. I said the new temple would have the same potential. Okay, let me go. Your life got the same potential. I know it looked better back then, but your life got the same potential. Your circumstance has the same potential. Your situation has the same potential. Not because of its appearance or not because of the size, but because of God's presence. The same God who filled the former temple with glory is still with them now, is what the prophet wants them to know. Beloved, in verse 4, God speaks directly to Zerubbabel, the governor of Judah, and the governmental leader. He was the political leader. And he says to him, be strong. Then he speaks to Joshua, the high priest. This is not Moses, it's Joshua. So we just be sure. He's not saying it's way after, right? But he says to him, because he's the spiritual leader, be strong. Government leader, be strong. Spiritual leader, be strong. Then God speaks directly to the people, commanding them, be strong. 3 times. I told y'all, when y'all see stuff 3 times, God mean it. He says, be strong. This isn't just a call to grit their teeth and push through it, Allie. It's a divine encouragement to have courage and to hope. Lord help. God wanted them to see that they could finish the work, not because of their own strength, but because of his power working through him. We got to be courageous. Beloved, God's message to Zerubbabel, to Joshua, and all the people was simple yet profound. Be courageous, because I am with you. It wasn't just for them. It's for you and me today. When we feel overwhelmed, when we feel disappointed, when we feel that God is not with us, when we feel like we can't make it, when we feel we don't have enough resources, time, we don't have enough stamina, we don't have enough ability. What the word says for us is that God's presence can give you the courage to keep going. Their courage was tied to their confidence in God. It was also tied to their confidence in God's presence and his promises. Just like the leaders and the workers rebuilding the temple, we too need encouragement to press on. Press on when disappointment feels overwhelming. Press on when you feel like you just want to stay at home and cry. Press on when you decide, I'm going to put everybody on do not disturb, right? Because I don't want to deal with nothing anymore. Press on. And beloved, for real, that's serious in this time of the year. It's serious in this time of the year where the joy of the season often collides with the weight of our unmet expectations, the weight of our unmet challenges. The command to be strong is really a call to be encouraged. If I ever text you and we've been talking about something that's long and hard and hard for us, I'll end with be encouraged. Be encouraged. That's one of my favorite statements. Beloved, it's a call to be encouraged, to see what that the present is here and not be paralyzed by the memory of what was. The people were stuck comparing, and comparison will kill you. They were stuck comparing their current work to the glory of Solomon's temple. And in doing so, they missed the value and potential of what God was doing right in front of them. Beloved, God was telling them, don't compare. Appreciate what you have now. Stop looking at what your neighbors got. Appreciate what God has given you. Stop worrying about how green the grass is on the other side. You don't know if they're using artificial spray to make it look green. Beloved, be encouraged, God says, because I am with you. At least you know your green is authentic. At least you know when you've been putting some water on it. At least you know when you're making an investment in it. Beloved, he says, be encouraged, because I'm with you. He says, this temple is just as significant as the other one, and more significant because I am with you. It reminds me, Karima, of when I went to the doctor on Thursday. It was a regular checkup, and it's interesting. The intake nurse asked a series of routine questions, Brietta, to assess if I was dealing with depression. I sat there and I almost laughed when she started asking the question. It's routine. If y'all go to Dr. Ray, y'all need to go to doctor every year, get you a checkup. But they're asking me, and they at first thought I was like, I'm not depressed. But those questions made me pause and realized that I had been weighed down by being overwhelmed. I had dealt with some disappointment. It wasn't depression, but it made me think about my circumstances. And it had to be reframed for me. Just like the questions from the nurse, reframe my perspective. God's command to be strong reframes our discouragement. He reminds us to stop focusing on what's behind us and to see what God is doing right now. Beloved, I didn't say see what's coming down the road. See what God is doing right now. That's why the songwriter wrote, count your blessings. Oh, I feel like preaching. Name them one by one. Count your many blessings. See what God has done. Beloved, you got to start to look at what God is doing for you right now. Stop waiting on what's coming down the street, but stop and look at what God is doing right now. Right now, I've got health and strength. Right now, I got activity of my limbs. Right now, I'm able to worship God. Right now, I'm able to lift up my voice. Right now, God is with me. Right now, I've got enough. Right now, God sees me. Right now is a brand new day. Right now, I've got enough strength. Right now. My past didn't overtake me. Right now, I'm in the will of God. Look at right now. Beloved, this is the second Sunday of Advent. The second Sunday of Advent focuses on peace. It's on the front of your bulletin. Peace. Last week was hope. This week is peace. This Sunday reminds us that we can find peace by listening to God's encouragement. Be courageous. Be strong. Be encouraged. Appreciate what God is doing right now because he's with you, mothers. Appreciate what God is doing right now because you may have some aches and pain. But appreciate what God is doing right now. Appreciate that he's been so faithful. I can never repay you, Lord, for what you done for me. How you loosed my shackles and you set me free. How you made a way out of no way. Turn my midnight into day. You've been my joy in the time of sorrow. My hope for all tomorrows. Yes, beloved, we got to be able to appreciate what God is doing right now. But we must appreciate that he's with us now. And when we find our courage in God's presence, we can remain committed to the work he's called us to do, and knowing that he's not finished yet. God's not through blessing you. Point number one, be courageous. Point number two, continue committed. Don't just continue. Lord help, the saints gonna get quiet on me. Don't just continue. Continue with some commitment. God wanted them to keep doing the work, but he needs them to keep doing the work with the right attitude. All right. Because some of us will have a bah humbug attitude and try to put a fake smile on our face. Well, Merry Christmas. And in the back of our head, we say, bah humbug. I'm going to do this because I got to do it. But I really don't feel like it. Listen to what happens in I'm just going to read verse 4, but the emphasis here is on the last line of verse 4. So remember, I've already read, yet now be strong, O Zerubbabel, declares the Lord. Be strong, O Joshua, son of Jehozadak, the high priest. Be strong, all you people of the land, declares the Lord. Work, for I am with you, declares the Lord of hosts. Work, for I am with you, declares the Lord of hosts. Continue committed. God's call to work is a call to work despite obstacles, despite your fears, despite your doubts, despite your concerns. And listen, it required faithfulness from the people of God. He says continue committed. Don't just continue. Make a promise with yourself and with your God. I'm going to stay focused in it. See, rebuilding the temple wasn't easy. They faced opposition, as I told you. The Samaritans were on their track, just like what happens with Nehemiah, who actively, the Samaritans were actively working against them. They also had internal struggles. This is what we deal with now. We have worries. We have insecurities. We have disappointments. Yet God's message through Haggai was clear. Keep working. Remain committed. Continue committed. See, Advent reminds us that staying committed isn't always easy. The waiting can be long. The work can feel small. But just as God was with his people then, he is with us now, giving us the strength to continue. Even when the resources seem limited, the progress feels small, God can bless our sustained efforts, just like he blessed their sustained efforts. Beloved, it wasn't about building a grand structure, but about trusting God who called them to the task. Hey, your life and living isn't about how marvelous you can make it. Your life and living is about the fact that you make it, that you keep going. See, we always trying to be over the top. If we're not going to be the very best, then I don't want to do it. Beloved, sometimes you just got to get across the finish line. Oh, I just got an illustration. Beloved, everybody that sets out to run the New York Marathon does not set out to run to win. But you know, the people always show us the day after the marathon. The marathon happens on a Sunday, Tiffany, but on Monday, they show us who came first, what man won first, what woman won first, all that stuff. But later, what has mattered, Bill Jenkins, is that there's folk that just was happy to finish. Oh, I can't. They was just happy to finish. And see, beloved, you ain't got to be first. You just got to finish. I said you ain't got to be first. You ain't got to win the first place medal and get 10, 20, 30, whatever, how much money they give. All you got to do is finish. Because here's what I want you to know what happens with the people that finish. Let me tell you what happens with the people that finish. They all get a medal. They all get recognized. Their time is all recorded. Okay. I ain't run a marathon yet, but I've run a 10K. And what I found out is I still got a medal. I still got my numbers recorded. I could go back, Craig, and look at it later. So I stopped by to tell you, it's not important that you be first. It's important that you finish. It's important that you keep going. Even when your resources seem limited, keep going. Even when the progress feels small, keep going. God can bless your efforts. It's not about how big it is. It's not about how great it is. What it is about is, are you willing to trust God as you do it? And beloved, there's something about what he says here in that verse. Work, for I am with you, declares the Lord of hosts. And that's a powerful moment. God reminds them, Rick, over and over, I am with you. I am with you. He says, work, because I'm with you. Work, because I'm with you. One more time. Work, because I'm with you. Y'all know that ain't new. But we hear that all throughout the scriptures. Moses at the burning bush. I almost feel like preaching. He says to Moses, when you go back into Egypt, go knowing that I am with you. Joshua, stepping into Moses' shoes, declared, God says to him, as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. Gideon, trembling with fear, was assured by God, I will be with you. Talk, Curry, I'm sure enough trying. David, walking through the valley of the shadow of death, writes in Psalm 23 and 4, for you are with me. And even to the disciples in Matthew 28 and 20, Reverend Christian, he says, and behold, I will be with you always, even until the end of the age. Over and 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 over again. God says, I will be with you. I will sustain you. I will watch over you. I will keep you. And when God's saying it, what he's saying is, I'll be faithful to you. I'll hold on to you. I'll tarry with you. I'll watch over you. My favor will be over your life. Yes, beloved, in this Advent season, we must remember he's Emmanuel. I said he's Emmanuel. God with us. Yes, Emmanuel. now. His presence is with us. Jesus came in the flesh to demonstrate that he's walking with us, working with us, reconciling us. Yes, his birth reminds us that God is committed to us, just as we are committed to him. I got to move. Like the people rebuilding the temple, we may feel our progress is small. You may feel like your resources are stretched. You may feel that the opposition is fierce. But the promise of God is, I am with you. Beloved, that's a good word. Got to go to court on Monday. He is with me. Got to go back and hear the report from the doctor. See what the CAT scan said. He is with us. Got to get ready to go across the sea and go on a long journey, even though I designed it for myself. But you got to know he is with you. Beloved, I stopped by to tell somebody, I may not come down your street exactly right. Maybe you're taking care of a spouse or an aging parent. Maybe you're taking care of an adult child with special needs. You need to remember God is with you. I should stop there, but I got some more to say. God is with you in the storm. He's with you. In the rain, he's with you. If you got lights outside on the house, he's with you. If you ain't got no lights, he's with you. If you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, he's with you. Yes, God is with you. And the call to you is keep going. Don't give up. Don't give in. Don't let the circumstances of your life and maybe even the jealousy of other folks' situation paralyze you from keep going. Just put one foot in front of the other and keep going. Okay, I got it. Okay, so be courageous. Continue committed. Third and finally, I got to go. I need you to consider God's covenant. I need you to consider God's covenant. Consider God's covenant. Look at verses 5 through 9. So he says, I am with you. And then he says, according to the covenant that I made with you when you came out of Egypt. He says, my spirit remains in your midst. Fear not, for thus saith the Lord of hosts, yet once more in a little while, I will shake the heavens and the earth and the sea and the dry land. And I will shake the nations, so the treasures of all nations shall come in. And I will fill this house with glory, says the Lord of hosts. The silver is mine. The gold is mine, declares the Lord of hosts. The latter glory of the house shall be greater than the former, says the Lord of hosts. And in this place I will give peace, declares the Lord of hosts. Now, before I unpack this, I need to see three things. Two. I'll just do two. If you were in Joyce's class, her precept class, you'd have to mark the stuff you see repeated in that text. Am I right, Joyce? Two things you see repeated. Two things in what I just read to you. Number one, I will shake twice. The Lord of hosts 5 times. Okay, I just want y'all to make sure you see what's in the text. I'm a preacher. I'm going to get out the way. I got to go. I'm tired. It's been a long week. But 2 things. I will shake and the Lord of hosts. Okay, as we move deeper into the text, we hear God calling his people to remember his covenant, to hold to his promise. He reminds them not only of the promise of his presence, but the promise of his power and his glory. The covenant God made with the people wasn't about just building a building. It was about his presence, his power, and yes, his peace. In the same way, Advent reminds us that God's covenant is fulfilled in Jesus, Emmanuel, who is with us now and will come again in glory. In verse 5, he says, my spirit remains in your midst. My spirit remains in your midst. That is a covenant promise. God is saying, I'm still here. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still here. I haven't left you, and I ain't going nowhere. I'm still here. I haven't left you, and I ain't going nowhere. Somebody need to rehearse that on their way into the doctor's office this week. I'm still here. I haven't left you, and I ain't going nowhere. I wish I could holler that. I'm still here. I've never left you, and I ain't going nowhere. As you deal with what's going on in your life, he's still here. He never left me, and he ain't going. No, I can't. He's still here. I'm dealing with a bad family situation. He's still here, and he never left me. And he ain't, I said he ain't going nowhere. I gotta stop. I know you like all that, Alfred, but I gotta keep going. Look how he says next to Haggai 5 times in verses 6 through 9. He says, the Lord of hosts. This is the name that reminds us of God's supreme authority. It's his battle name. Oh, I said it's his battle name. I said it's his battle name. I said it's his battle name. It's his warrior name. Dr. Barbara Christian is his warrior name. It's the name that says, I fight for you. He fights for me. The Lord of hosts commands armies, controls nations, holds all creations in his hands. He's in charge. Then he says in verse 7, I will shake the nations. He says, I got power over kings and kingdoms. I got power over presidents and countries. Preach, Curry. I'm sure enough trying because somebody's discouraged about what's happening politically. But God says, I know how to shake nations. Reminds me of Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted in the nations, and I'll be exalted in the earth. I gotta move. He declares the silver is mine and the gold is mine. Beloved, that's God's sovereignty. He said everything belongs to me. Every resource, every treasure, everything in heaven and everything in earth belongs to him. And just as he promised to fill the temple with glory, he promises to fill our lives with his presence and with peace that comes from Jesus Christ. This peace I give to you, not as the world gives. Yes. And then he says in verse 9, in this place I will give peace. That means he has supremacy to give peace. Only God has the power to shake heavens. Only God has the power to fill the temple with glory. And only God can bring peace in the world. That is what Advent reminds us. God keeps his promise. It's about a covenant. God made a covenant with his people, and he's faithful. He's faithful to fulfill it. And in the first Advent, God sent Christ into the world with power. Through Jesus, the glory of God was revealed. The nations were shaken, and the promise of peace was given. But Brother Jones, there's another Advent coming. And in that Advent, God will send Christ again. And I'm so glad he ain't coming like as a baby next time. He's not coming as a baby in a manger, but he's coming as King of Kings, Lord of Lords. He's coming with power and glory, with the peace that has no end. Advent says, remember the covenant. God is a way maker. God is a miracle worker. God is a promise keeper. And God is light in the darkness. If he said it, he'll do it. If he said it, he'll bring it to pass. Beloved, I don't want to miss it. Look at what he says. The silver is mine. The gold is mine. He's not just talking about material wealth, but he's declaring his sovereignty over everything. In other words, he's saying, don't worry about what you don't have. Don't worry about what you lack. Don't worry about your lack of resources. Don't let lack discourage you. I own everything. I'm in charge of everything. God is reminding his people, that is you and me, that his plans don't depend on what we can see. They don't depend on what we think we have. God is our source. God is our supplier. God has the power to restore everything that's been lost and everything that's empty. So, beloved, I want to encourage you on this second Sunday of Advent to remember his promises. Consider his covenant. God has the power to shake the nations, to fill the temple with glory, to bring peace to his people. He's still doing it today. Whatever you're facing, remember the Lord of hosts is on your side, and he's shaking things. He's still filling places. He's still bringing peace. Advent reminds us that God is in charge. God will get the glory. God will bring peace. So as we consider his covenant, let's hold to his promise, knowing that the same God who kept his word to Israel is the same God that keeps his word to you and me, and that leads us to the greatest promise of all. He gives us peace. I said he gives us peace. I said he gives us peace. He gives us peace. Yes, I'm on my way to my seat. But Sister Jones, I was thinking about something. As I looked at this text, and I got this title, Keep Going, There's More to Come, I thought about a 7-course meal. Now, beloved, I've only been involved in a 7-course meal one time, Sister Jones, and it was the one time Lady Kareem and I went to the Weekend to Remember conference. It was a few years back, and at the Weekend to Remember conference for couples, married couples, they have a date night on Saturday night. And we had gone before, so we had did a little boat cruise, and so I had to be creative and find something else. And I found this winery, yes, I said winery that had 7-course meals, all right? And so I said, well, we're going to do this, and we're going to go. And beloved, with the 7-course meal, it's really not as exhaustive, as big as we think it sounds. Because we said 7 courses, I can't eat that much. But Sam, a 7-course meal is proportionate. They don't give you, this ain't the Cheesecake Factory. You know, the Cheesecake Factory, every plate is big, at least pre-pandemic. It was big. But in a 7-course meal, they give you a little bit at a time. Pair it with the right wine. Don't get caught up on that. But they give you a little bit at a time. And they proportion it, and they time it. They don't bring you a plate and then hurry up and bring you another plate. They give you time to shine the talk. Give you time to look googly-eyed with folk and, you know, go back and forth. But they bring it out a little bit at a time. I don't know if y'all catching it. Well, beloved, I need you to understand that your life and my life is like that 7-course meal. God gives you just a little bit at a time. It's proportionate for where you are. And I know you're looking for a major blessing, but you better look at the little bit God is doing. I feel like preaching at a time. He brings you out your appetizer, just a little bit at a time. Then he brings you your little salad for your life, a little bit at a time. Then he brings you some soup so you can be warmed up. And while you're getting a little bit at a time, your appetite is building. And you're getting an anticipation. So God opens one door. He gives you a little bit in that door. Then God opens another door. Gives you a little bit in that door. He says, look, beloved, I'm still with you. I'm still on your side. I can't give it all to you all at once, but I'm going to give you a little bit so you'll hold on to the experience. So you'll hold on for the journey. And I'm on my way to my seat. But I'm telling you, if you give up now, you'll miss the main course. If you give up now, you'll miss your dessert. If you give up now, you're going to miss something you need. You'll miss something you like. Keep going. Keep going. There is more to come. More joy, more peace, more grace, more love. Yes. Yes. Okay.
wish I had a real voice today. It's been a long week, but I need y'all to help me preach. I need you to find somebody on your road and just tell them, keep going. More is on the way.